Still on the ANC National Conference then and the adoption of policies. Let's bring into this conversation independent economic analyst, commentator and social activist Bongani Mahlangu. Thanks very much for joining us, sir. We appreciate your time.
No, greetings to you, Flo, and greetings to the viewers as well.
All right, let's talk then about, what's likely to be addressed. I mean, what's new that the ANC could, and I mean, I know we're limiting our conversation to economic policy considerations, but when we talk about the economy, it really touches on just about everything, really, and many aspects. But what's new that the ANC could then say on matters like economic freedom, power challenges, land, etc.? What are you thinking the ANC should be saying at this time?
No, thanks. So basically all issues are intersectional. So as you've rightfully put, one variable tends to, even if it's an economic variable, it does affect social variables, legal variables, and other variables. So that is that. But what I would like to hear is more of how they plan to strengthen their leadership. Because as far as policy is concerned, I expect that they would continue with the existing policies in general, because that leads to policy stability. And one thing that the ANC government has often been accused of is policy instability. You can't be chopping and changing policies and not allowing policies to breathe so that they are tested in the market. I can make, for example, like you still have policies in South Africa, your employment equity plan, section 20, subsection 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That speaks about if you don't have experience, you should be given an opportunity, as long as you can generate that experience within reasonable time. But you find such a policy or such a clause has not been properly implemented, if at all, so it has not been given space to breathe. So to change it, you are leading to policy instability. And if you can't even implement the new policy, then it's problematic. So, but all these things go back to the people that you put at the helm to implement everything that you bring forth. So if the ANC does not speak about it, does not speak about incompetence, it does not speak about capability of those it deploys, then everything becomes useless. But that's the only thing I expect to hear, or that would be the most significant thing to say. How do we improve that? I mean, even if you look into the 2017 resolutions, the ANC did speak about that. It did speak about development of internal capacity. It did speak about bringing forward people who are fit for task, but nothing has been done yet. So let them just adopt and continue with what they have. They should not have anything radical or anything new, because they failed even in their radical socio-economic transformation, which was the theme of 2017, but let them improve the leadership.
All right, and it's not as if this is the first time, that the ANC has to address these sort of issues pertaining to economic policy, but, we've seen failures. What would you say is a sort of stumbling block for the ANC to be able to implement some of these policies? Because they sound promising on paper, but when it comes to implementation, there seems to be a problem. And I wonder if we'd then be talking about issues like corruption causing some of these stumbling blocks. I think you did mention quite a few there about people not being capable of doing the job. But what are some of the main issues, stumbling blocks that the party is facing?
I'll basically make the same argument. Even if you look at it from an economic point of view, in economics, you have 4 factors of production. And one factor, the most critical of the factors of production, is your human capital or humans. In this case and context in the ANC, that is the leadership. So it's humans that enable the other 3 factors of production to then function. And it's those factors, when they are all functioning, that you then are able to develop or create employment and reduce unemployment, poverty and inequality. So now this becomes the most critical of the 4 factors. So the ANC has been struggling to properly activate, properly use this factor in order to enable other factors. And as a consequence of that, you have what you call, for instance, your youth employment plans that the president has came up with. They all sound good and great, but when you interrogate them further, you find that these are underemployment initiatives. They do not lead to full employment. They do not lead to these young people or people in general properly accessing your bankings, or being economically active and able to then consume accordingly, which then generates revenue for the state. They've not been able to do that. So it's all these chops and changes and your patch policies that do not lead to anything. But then if you trickle them down, it goes back to that one factor of production where you have competent individuals. So now if you look, for example, within the elected NEC members, let's say the president were to reshuffle tomorrow and use that pool only in the reshuffle, you don't have credible people there. So you don't have the credible factor there. For instance, if you look into the quality pool of these people, just by a process of elimination, you have former mayors there that have lost metropolitans or weakened municipalities. You have people there that have been convicted of crimes. You have people there that have weakened provinces, such as your Gauteng, such as your KZN, critical provinces for the ANC. Can make tons of examples, but then it goes back to these individuals. You have in the cabinet currently, each and every minister and deputy minister has signed a performance agreement. But if you look at from when they got into office in 2029 up until now, what the items or the KPIs that are there, how many have they been able to implement and implement successfully, if at all? You'd find that there is almost poor performance. We are still talking about the establishment of a state bank. Go and look into the performance agreement of the finance minister and what is expected to him as far as creation of a state bank. It has not been done, and there has not been any consequence. So this one factor of production, which is leadership, does not only rest within ministers, but it goes to the president as well, because ultimately he's the one that is supposed to account for everything that happens in the state. So the question then must be asked when we look into this his performances as far as policy position of the ANC is concerned, as far as the constitutional mandate is concerned, and other mandates that are given to him as an individual and as a person that deploys or a person that appoints individuals. Has he been able to activate the other four or other three factors of production? We'll find that he has not been able to do so. And if you say, no, let him be given another 5 years in the ANC, 5 years in government, will he be able? I do not know. Because remember, he was a deputy president. That's 5 years. He's a president now up until next year. That's another 5 years. That's 10 years. So moving to 15 years, will this one factor of production be significantly boosted? I doubt.
All right, Bongani, thanks very much for your input. We certainly do appreciate it here on SABC News. That's Bongani Mahlangu there.